Mr Speaker, cost of living is a priority for the LNP because it's a priority for Queenslanders. Queenslanders have endured price rise after price rise, cost hike after cost hike under this government. Electricity, water, rent, food, insurance, the list goes on. We're living through the steepest cost of living pressures in this country because of the failures of this government. But according to the government, this doesn't matter. Never have Queenslanders faced such major impacts to the hip pocket threatening their way of life. No matter where I visit across our state, I spend time listening to people and the message is always the same. Families are struggling. They're having to decide which bill to pay, which bill will fall past the due date. It's a devastating choice and they shouldn't have to make that. It's not the Queensland I know and it's not the Queensland I want to see in the future. Mr Speaker, as I travel across the state, I haven't found one family that tells me they are better off in the last 10 years when it comes to cost of living under this government. Because this Labor government is consumed by chaos and crisis and have the wrong priorities, Queenslanders are paying the price. From last year's CPI data, we know Queensland household electricity bills increased by 19.9%. That's almost 3 times the national average. The CPI figures also revealed the following: 6.7% increase to health costs, the highest in the country, 4.2% increase in transport, the highest in the nation, 8.4% in rent, 18.5% in insurance, 7.4% in sport participation. The government's initial response to the early signs of this emerging crisis was hampered by its insistence that everything was okay. To its credit, the government is now rolling out some short-term assistance, and we welcome that. What's needed is a long-term plan to address the issues which they have embedded in Queensland. The LNP supports the cost of living measures in this budget as an inevitable cost of 9 years of planning failures. The difference is we will also embark on a new plan, a plan that seeks to address the long-term causes of Queensland's cost of living crisis. Our first step is a commitment to a maintenance guarantee on our power plants. A major driver in high power prices has been the failure of the power plant at Callide. It's been below capacity for almost 3 years and it has driven up the cost of power. The maintenance guarantee will ensure the necessary work required to keep our power plants up and running and that it'll be there to deliver cost of living relief. Where we differ with the government is a focus on driving real reform to lowering the underlying cost of government services, things like electricity and water. Real reform to lower prices is something the LNP has committed to, including our supercharged solar for renters policy. It'll save renters over $700 on their bills. We will do this by incentivising owners of residential properties to install solar so their tenants can reap the benefit of clean energy. The LNP will deliver cheaper learner licences after we led the campaign to reduce the cost of getting a learner's driver's licence. Sadly, more and more Queenslanders are becoming victims of crime because of a government that prioritised offenders' rights over the rights of victims. There's a cost associated with this. Through our Making Queensland Safer laws, which will pass by the end of the year if we're elected in October, Queenslanders will be able to feel safe in their homes and their local communities again. Mr Speaker, insurance is a massive driver in the cost of living crisis. The dual failures of not properly planning for disasters, as well as watering down the youth justice laws, has led to a perfect storm for insurance premiums. Home insurance, car insurance, business insurance have all been pushed up by avoidable pressures. By removing threats from our community and through tougher laws, we will lower those pressures. We'll also invest in traffic congestion busting infrastructure like the Sunshine Coast heavy passenger rail all the way to Maroochydore, and progress projects like the Barron River Bridge and a North Side tunnel for Brisbane that for 10 years have been put in the too hard basket by this government. We'll invest in community resilience infrastructure to minimise the risk of natural disasters and drive down the cost of water through better water security. Queenslanders want solutions that last longer than an election period. There are opportunities for cost of living relief in the transition, but only if it is done right with a genuine plan. The government does not have a credible plan. They have a multi-billion-dollar fantasy based on the pioneer Burdekin pumped hydro project, a project energy experts and environmentalists believe just won't happen. Massive cost blowouts on this project will unavoidably drive up the price of power. This is a project without direct funding, no approvals, no social licence from the local community. It will inevitably lead to higher prices for consumers. There's a difference between responsibly supporting budget supply and honouring underway fully funded programs and backing exorbitant thought bubbles. For these reasons, I announce today an LNP government will not proceed with the Pioneer Burdekin pumped hydro scheme. In its place, we will embark on a long-term plan which will provide alternative storage options to this unachievable project. The LNP will investigate opportunities for smaller, more manageable pumped hydro projects. We will bring in new laws to ensure all projects are treated equally. While regional Queensland to this government is just a media backdrop for announcements that eventually join a growing list of unkept promises, regional Queenslanders will know a government I lead will have their backs as we work together to preserve the jobs we have, create more jobs in the future in our regional communities. No special treatment will be given in relation to planning and environmental approvals. That process will start with a thorough examination of the costings and planning for the government's pumped hydro project at Barumba during estimates. Whether it is a farming project, a residential project or a renewable project, the same standards have to apply. But let me be clear. The Pioneer Burdekin project is not feasible. It will never be built, and the government knows it. This is why there is a $1 billion equity investment in the company, but no actual capital investment in the project. This is why there is nothing in the forwards, and this is why there is no backing from the federal government. The Pioneer Burdekin project is reported to cost around $20 billion, yet the government can't even be honest with this. And if, as the Treasury claims, the project is fully funded under Labor, then Labor must explain ahead of the election what it will cut to fill the $20 billion hydro hole. Or admit the LNP now has an additional $20 billion for roads, rail and infrastructure projects for the next decade. You choose. The LNP will deliver a solution which will make energy affordable, reliable and sustainable. Mr Speaker, fixing Queensland's youth crime crisis is a priority for me because it's a priority for Queenslanders. The impact on Queenslanders has been immense. We are all aware of the past tragedies of the last 9 years. This government might believe victims of crime don't matter, but we do. What has happened to Queensland matters. Their stories matter.